tried to have slightly more than that 37. In some cases, 40, in some cases, 42. But it came to a worrisome level when the current president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, raised the bar by increasing the number of ministers to a whopping 45. And it is extremely worrisome because of the nature of the Nigerian economy, the structure of the economy, the struggling nature of our economy, the poverty in the land, the need to reduce the expenses of government, and all that talk about economic management. And that is why so many people are so worried that in the midst of all these challenges in the nation, Mr. President still found it meet. Sorry
about that.
Mr. President still found it meet to increase the number of his ministers. At the initial stage, Nigerians argued when they felt that Mr. President was a very altruistic finance manager. Nigeria first possibly it will not bloat up the overall cost of governance, in the sense that if you increase the number and reduce the perks of office and reduce the overall cost, that it will further lead to more division of labor and more government efficiency. But as time went on, it became very obvious that Mr. President increased the number without commensurate reduction in cost of governance. And that is why Nigerians have started crying foul. And such cry has come to the ears of the parliament, and the parliament felt, instead of leaving it to the discretion of Mr. President in subsequent governments, let us make it a constitutional matter and by law, statutorily, reduce and limit the number to 37, in which case such latitude, such opportunity, which presidents will always use to appoint more than 37, will no longer be available. And they will now be restricted to the number statutorily provided by the Constitution, which is a minimum of 37. In this case, there's no longer minimum and there will be no longer maximum. Because what the presidents do is they will go and appoint some people to represent the 6 geopolitical zones. Take, for example, there are 6 geopolitical zones. After appointing 1 minister per state, you now appoint 1 minister to represent each geopolitical zone, giving you 6 plus 37, that is 43. And Mr. President further went down to appoint more than that, which is 45. And on the other side of the argument by the parliament, or especially those who propose the motion, is that it also leads to nepotism and lack of equity and lack of balancing in the land.
Okay.
Because the present crop of ministers, out of the 45, 4 come from Ogun State. So it gives you the kind of impression what the parliamentary proposers of this new bill are worried about.
Okay.
All
right. Yeah.
Begin to think of the issue of, which ministry is juicy and which is not, which of course will not be the discourse, but the efficiency of government, the capacity to deliver good governance, and the ability to reduce the cost of governance. Because if you can't eat your cake and say have it in your hands. If you make your budget and the recurrent expenditure, which is the cost of running the government, far outweighs the capital expenditure, which is the one that you use to regenerate the economy and carry out capital projects. If that imbalance continues, then your country is not going to grow, because you find out that 70 to 75% of your budget outlay will be spent in running government, which can be called very ephemeral expenditure, very recurrent, something that you just spend and go. Next year, you spend it again and go. Unlike the capital project that can be used to wage investments, used to develop infrastructure, and used to do so many things that will be long-lasting and that will bring the economy up to speed to the international level that we expect it to do. So on one side, I feel that the action of the current president must have led to this thinking of the cabinet, and I think I go with it.
All right, so if we're going to stay with the cabinet now, the conversation around cost of governance, Barrister Fred, isn't just solely with the cabinet, isn't just solely with FEC. There are also questions around NAS as well. So do you think that this should also apply to NAS, looking inwards to see how cost of governance can be reduced? Because some have even pointed out we may not need two houses. We may just need the Senate and not the House of Reps. So just make of it what you will.
I agree with you 100% that the cost of governance should not only, we should not only direct our satellite to the executive, we should also look at the legislature, because the humongous amount of money that is used to maintain our legislature, which is rated to be the costliest in the world, that our parliament, their take home is the highest in the entire world, even though our economy is nothing near the first 100, nothing near the first 100. When you look at the economy in terms of the GDP per capita, in terms of the welfare of the people, in terms of enjoyment of life, and other human capital indices that you can use to measure how good the economy is going, in terms of employment, in terms of capacity for people to be productive and all that. Because both human capital and natural resource capital, when you look at even the exploitation of the resources and the rest, you cannot count Nigeria within the first 100 in the world. Because that is why when you look at some of those indices, Nigeria will be struggling with other war-torn countries at number 140 something, or in some cases 150 something, and even the corruption index. So you can now understand the reason why we do not need to have a bloated cabinet. And it seems to me that there is a connection between national development and the number of, or rather the expenditure in government. Yes, we are running bicameral legislature, the Senate and the House of Reps at the federal level. And what worries me always is that for every bill to become an act of parliament, both houses will look at it. To me, it's a duplication of functions. The Senate will look at it separately. The House of Reps will look at it separately. They will now have a harmonization committee of both houses to look at it, harmonize it, before taking it to the executive for accent. Even when the bill comes from executive, which is called the executive bill, it still has to pass through these double layers of legislative action.
Yeah.
It amounts to the duplicity of function. And that is why in every cycle, we used to have about 150 billion naira budget for the National Assembly, for the federal legislature. When the hue and cry from the public became so loud, it was scaled down to 125 billion under Bukola Saraki. And it now jumped up again under the current dispensation to 350 billion naira, servicing 469 people. 360, in the House of Reps, and 109 in the Senate. So our federal parliament is made up of 469 people. And that's why they take home every month between 25 million and 35 million naira.
Yeah.
For the principal members of the parliament, they take home more than that. They get a lot of G's in terms of domestic staff and all aids and all the perks of office. And the annoying aspect of it is that, or rather, the worrisome aspect of it is that these things are in the face of the stark economic challenges of the country. Why wouldn't we have a unicameral legislature? Senegal has tried it bicameral and it didn't work. They shrunk their own to single parliament. And today they are better off for it. And a lot of civil society organizations are ready to even bring in their input. In some countries, parliamentary functions are part-time. But in Nigeria, our parliamentary members are on full-time employment. Even when the Constitution has said that if you sit for 180 days in a year, you have met up the threshold. 180 days means 6 months. So what it means is that if you sit for 6 months, you have met the threshold. They claim that the rest of the 6 months, they use it in carrying out oversight function, visiting their constituencies, and doing committee works. All these things are excuses that are given to support or to justify the humongous amount of money being poured in. Some people see it as being wasted on our parliament. You cannot exactly call it wasted, but we can do better than what we are doing, because we need every money that we can get to jumpstart our economy on the line of productivity. Because without productivity, you can't create jobs. Without productivity, you cannot increase the GDP. Without productivity, you cannot increase the per capita income of the citizens. You cannot increase so many things that will make life better for Nigerians. And that is why Nigerians are running away in droves to countries that are better arranged. Now, let's look at the countries that are better arranged. You call them the developed countries of the world. America, with 345 million people, has 15 secretary of states. I mean, secretaries. You call them secretaries. Their ministers are called secretaries in America. 15. Just 15 in a big economy like United States. In a very large economy like China, which has become the second most developed country of the world, of over 1.4 billion people, they have only 26 ministers. And in their cabinet, when you add their 3 premiers, the premier himself, 4 councillors, and the secretary of the ruling party, of course, you know that China system. The secretary of the party is a member of the cabinet. They have a cabinet of 35, out of which 26 are ministers, running that big economy of China. Japan, with 1.3 million people, has only 19 ministers. Germany, with 84 million people, has only 16 ministers. United Kingdom, which is our colonial masters, from where we had the first republic parliamentary system under secretaries, Australia, for example, with 23 ministers. So it seems to me, as a scholar, that there is a nexus between the number of ministers in your country and your rate of growth and development. Because these countries have understood the need to shrink the cost of governance and inject large funds into capital projects that make them what they are today. When you call them developed world, what makes them developed? Because they don't waste their resources. Can we ever get developed with these continuous wastages of our resources? And in the name of bloated governance and the high cost of governance on account of large cabinet. So I think this is a very good study for students of political science and governance to look at. And in that wise, I stand with the parliament that says we need to hold down to 37. And if we further restructure our system, we need to, like you rightly pointed out, run with a single parliament, which is a unicameral legislature, and further bring down the cost of governance, restructure the entire geopolitical polity of Nigeria, and reduce the number of ministers. There's no reason why we should be running with Nigerian system with more than 18 ministers or thereabout.
Okay, now, what do you think prompted this much appointment by President Bola Tinubu? Some would argue, although we didn't get a clear reason, we're not communicated clearly. We didn't get any statement from the spokespersons, Bayo Ononaga and the rest, as to why this would come up. But now, some would tie this to a growing population. That would, talk about boosting the economy, the creation of the livestock ministry. What do you think prompted this much appointment by President Bola Tinubu?
I do not think it is because our economy is growing. Rather, our economy is even
Population,
shrinking. And
rather.
that is even the more reason why the government, our growth rates, you remember we even went into recession 3 times under President Muhammad Buhari.
Yeah.
And even when the government of the day is claiming that we are out of recession, the life of the people, the cost of life, of maintenance of life in Nigeria does not even show any positive direction despite all the statistics being released by National Bureau of Statistics. But be that as it may, an economy that is growing at fluctuating between 2 and 3% annual growth rate cannot, GDP growth rate cannot claim to be doing very well. A country where the number of unemployed people is even more than the number that are employed, where you have such a humongous number of children out of school, and all the challenges that we have in the country, you cannot claim that they are doing very well. And therefore, you need more ministers to handle things. I have told you that with 345 million people in America, they have 15 secretaries that are ministers. With 1.4 billion people in China, they have only 26 ministers. So we cannot claim that it is on account of increasing population that we need to increase the number of people, or any reason that is justifiable, both in economics and in due governance. What we can only attribute this to is creating job for the boys, creating job to assuage partisan politicians, bringing everybody on board as much as it is feasible, so that you have a wider scope of political friends and acolytes. And that is why some of these appointments are with a view to the next general election in 2027. Today, many of the ministers are not only redundant, but are inactive. The government has recently rejigged the ministry, his cabinet. The president has recently rejigged his cabinet, dropped about 5, and we thought it will be good. And he added 7. He dropped 5 and added 7. We used to have about 43 ministers. Today, we have 47. We have 45 today. So it simply tells you that there is no reason in dynamic economic management. There is no reason in bringing good governance to the people in this type of appointment that was made by the Mr. President, apart from the fact that he wanted to satisfy so many political blocs in the country that possibly had one or two things to do, which is election in 2023, or positively will have something in his own calculation to do for his re-election in 2027. So Mr. President is now torn in between satisfying those who helped him in 2023 and satisfying those who will help him in 2027. The rest of the things are about economic management, about moving more funds into capital projects, are no longer the major considerations in the government of today. And that is why we have not seen the positives coming out from this government, to the extent that even the members of the political party who thought that things will be better, politicians themselves who thought that things will be better, are now crying foul about the terrible bad governance. Well, we wouldn't say bad governance, but rather the terrible difficulty in the land. And when there is such difficulty in the land, what do you call it? Is either the government is not doing enough, or their works are not addressing the core issues. How do you want to address the core issues? Release more money. Economics is a dynamic subject. Release more money towards capital investment. Savings in economics is equal to investment. Invest more in people, in human resources, in infrastructure, and in productivity and reduce unnecessary frivolous expenses. And but this government does not seem to be thinking in that kind of economic direction.
Okay, but Barrister Fred.
Travel abroad with multiple plane loads of people going along with Mr. President, all those things amount to costs.
But Mr. Fred, not to deviate, but we've heard of a lot of deals that have been signed with the French government, and at the G20 summit, the Ministry of Livestock. I think a lot of money is going to be injected into that sector, the livestock. And even now, the German president is coming into the country today to talk about investment in infrastructure and agriculture. So the point of all of this is we've seen the president, ink a lot of deals with countries. So don't you think that's going to, I mean, in line with what you're saying about the plan for the economic boost or something?
The reality we have on ground is that when Mr. President travels outside Nigeria, he can sign a lot of deals. But what of the implementation of those signed MOUs and agreements that you call deals? Where are they implemented? The companies that should come in, where are they? Rather, what we're seeing is that the ones here are leaving. The ones here are leaving because of very toxic business environment in Nigeria, accentuated by massive insecurity in the land, lack of energy. Now the energy has become, not only that it is not available, it has become very costly. You begin to toy with the energy mix. You call some band A, band B, band C, band D. I have never seen such a thing anywhere in the world. And that tells you that it is as a result of the confusion in the land. So it is not for when you visit a country, naturally you will sign deals. But what is the result, the net effect of those deals that you sign? And that is what we are expecting, that when they come, you will not forget that after signing the deals, that is on the bilateral national level. When you now come to the real nitty-gritty, the businessmen are the ones that will come, not the government that you sign deal with. You can sign any number of MOUs with government officials. Government officials are not in business. They don't come to invest in you, in your economy. It is the businessmen and the investors from their country that you have gone to woo that will come in here. And before they come, they will contact their embassies and their consulates to ask them what is on ground in Nigeria. The report that they get is what will scare them away. Of course, they don't need to go too far, because international investment is always looking, it's like a beautiful bride. It's always looking for where it is well cherished and nourished. It will sit there and grow and multiply. An international investor needs return on investment. That is the only thing he wants to hear. And when that return is not coming, he will run away from the country. He will sell off anything he has. He doesn't even mind selling them as scrap or at a giveaway, so that he will have his focus in another country and not be distracted by that economy that is not helping his ministry, helping his mandate. Today, not only that the cost of doing business in Nigeria is very high, there is multiple taxation and the massive corruptive elements from the public sector, whereby before you want to even invest in Nigeria, half of the money that you want to use to foreign investment will go in settling all paraphernalia issues that have to do with your investment. The core investment will not be there. So an investor who wants to conduct a pure feasibility study, when he gets the report, remember that international organizations in accounting and in business finance are there to give them direction. When they give them a report about what is going on in Nigeria, they will not want to come. They won't want to come. Okay. And that is why after signing all the MOUs and the agreements, you will not see any net result. And the problem is within us. The solution must come from within.
Okay, so now let's focus on the state governments a bit, because I believe that when it comes to appointments, that's not entirely at the federal level, and the cost of governance cuts across the 3 tiers of government. So, what are some, reforms you would want to see at that level as well?
At the third level, of course, what goes on at the center has a way of affecting the federating states, because the governors themselves, who are the leaders of the federating states, when they come together in their governors forum, which is supposed to be a peer review forum, where if you learn something good and implement it in your state, your brother governor can imitate and emulate it and replicate it in his state. When all the 36 states get to do things that are right, naturally the country will begin to grow. But when you meet with your brother governor and the question is, oh boy, who has helped you to carry away money from Nigeria, your own money? How do you do it? And he gives you a link of the person who will launder money, who usually has laundered money for him in a very neat way without the eyes of the anti-corruption agencies and the eyes of international anti-corruption bodies. So at the end of the day, the meeting will end up being a meeting of like minds who are there for their selfish purposes and selfish interests. Otherwise, why would virtually all the governors not conduct good and credible local government election? That is one. Two, why would virtually all the governors not give account of this behemoth called security vote? In every budget cycle, large chunk of money is voted for office of the governor, part of which is the security vote that nobody accounts for. Some governors, when they try to be nice, they will tell you that they spend close to about 5 billion in security vote every month. Chief Alameda Dedibu of the blessed memory once told his governor then in Oyo State that he should bring that security vote for them to share, that they were the ones keeping the state secure through his own non-state actor role. And when I told the governor point blank that if you refuse or fail to bring that money for me to get my own share, we will make the state ungovernable. The governor thought it was a joke. The next week, there was riot that started from a motor park. And he warned him until he was settled. And there was peace in Oyo State. It was an eye-opener to Nigerians about the effect of security vote and the way it is being mismanaged, that the governors will collect the money and not secure the state. Some governors will tell you, oh, we are using it to support, you know, that we are chief security officers on paper, that the order flows from the center. The commissioner of police does not account to me. The director of SSS does not account to me. They report to their masters in Abuja. So our own is to only give them support. What is the support? Sometimes they buy them walkie-talkie, buy them vehicles, motorcycles, and the rest of them. And then the rest, they share money to all the heads of security agencies in the state. At the end of the day, the state still remains largely unsecured. Otherwise, what part of Nigeria today is fully secured as it was in the past? So when there is this massive insecurity in the land, and you expect an investor to come with his hard-earned foreign currency to come and invest in your environment, where not only will he not be free, his staff will not be free, his associates will not be free, despite the fact that even the government officials that were supposed to give him licenses to operate would fleece him with a large amount of money and still mess him up. He will naturally back out and go elsewhere. Under the leadership of Buhari and Yemi Osinbajo, the then vice president, when he was the few days that he acted as an acting president, tried to sign the ease of doing business bill. And it was like an executive order. He signed it into law and tried to implement it. Go and check how well it is implemented. Go to the website of any government agency or any government regulatory agency, regulatory one that will, when you come in as a business person, they will be the ones to regulate your activities. Check out their website. Call any of their numbers and see whether any of them is working. So how can a country run like that? And you expect international businessmen to bring their money here? So it is not to go around, junket around and say you are looking for investors. Most times, the governors, they go out, they claim they're looking for investors. They only go to keep the money they have taken out of their state well.
Okay, but Barrister Fred, that's
It is
allegedly.
not an allegation, it is a statement of fact that if a governor travels outside the country to any other country, 60 to 70% of the time, it is to go and keep well the money he has taken from that state.
Okay, but we don't have the evidence, Barrister. You know, that's
I
your
say this
field.
with I say
We
this
don't.
with all sense of responsibility and without prejudice to anybody's feeling. That because those who listen to me as I speak, they know that what I'm saying is the truth. Well, we
Okay.
cannot. There's no need behaving like the ostrich, because out of all the junketing around the world, they claim, how many investors have they brought in? How
Oh,
many?
well, you know, it takes time. It's a process. But Barrister,
No,
now.
it will take ages. We are from 1999 to date. This is 25 years. Tell me the new international organizations that are coming to this country.
Okay,
I can
now.
give you
So,
at least 20 that are left
mm,
between then and today,
so
and
thankfully,
more are still living.
yeah. So now talking about 1999 till date, let me just go back a bit to give a brief overview of why we're even having this conversation at all. So the Green Chamber in February this year said it will address the pitfalls that led to the failure of past constitution amendments in the country. The Green Chamber inaugurated a constitution review committee, and it said it was going to work closely with the executive at the state and federal levels. And the House, of course, promised Nigerians that it will ensure that the current process of amending the 1999 Constitution does not suffer the fate of previous exercises. The assertion was made by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abbas Tadujin, while inaugurating the sixth special committee in Abuja, the Transcorp. Now, Honorable Tadujin revealed that the current process would be deeply rooted in engaging Nigerians at all levels. And some areas of this review, they talked about the local government autonomy, state policing. I think now the recent conversation about reducing the streamlining the Federal Executive Council and some others. So, Barrister, you are better informed on this. This is your field. Take us through the constitutional review process in Nigeria and some areas that you think would even need reforms, some challenges and areas that you strongly believe, because there have been conversations too about single term, that maybe the issue of handing over is also affecting development. Some say, I think it was Atiku that came out to he made the pronouncement for a single term, that maybe that would help with the growth of the country. But just make of it what you will, please take us through it.
There are so many things that require amendment. But meanwhile, what has frustrated, in fact, since 1999, all the assemblies had always made some attempts at reviewing the Constitution, but they end up only crossing some I's and dotting some T's. The major reviews, the one that you can call jumbo reviews, have not been done. The one that you can call the kind of review that will be a catalyst to national development has not been done. And what are they? One, the decision on the number of states that we have, which is called, let me generally call it, decision on restructuring. Out of the 30 states that we have, in effect, less than 6 of them can stand on their own without getting to collect money from federation accounts in Abuja. The flip side to it, the argument is that most of the money also comes from the state to the federal, because all the mineral resources that give Nigeria money lie under the soil in various states, exploited by the federal government and put into the federation account and shared. The customs and the rest of them that are the Internal Revenue Service and all those revenue agencies of the government that make money, put in the central till and shared. That means that economically and financial management of Nigeria is still under is not federated, rather system that will operate there. We are answering federal just by mouth, because most of the things that make us federal are lacking. And that is the juice of the presidential system that we have borrowed from America. And we operate more or less a confused system. In America, they don't have anything like a minister of state. They have ministers that are secretaries in charge of the major departments. In UK, they have minister of state that assist the cabinet ministers themselves. So we now have the ministers from America. We have the Minister of State from UK, and we are operating that has made the cost of systems of government, and we are operating here in an economy that is always gasping for breath. So if you want to talk about real amendment of our constitution, you start with the issue of, do we need this 36 state structure? Do we need these 36 houses of assembly, 36 judiciary, and 36 bureaucracy of government in the land? Do we need bicameral legislature, House of Reps and House of and Senate? Do we need this number of ministers? Do we need so many things that are wrong in our system today? But you can say, some analysts argue that the legislature does not have the capacity to do all that, because you cannot sit and cancel yourself out. Because if you say Senate and House of Reps, which one will go? It becomes an issue. Which one will go? And it is a sovereign national conference that can reset the country. The military has succeeded in resetting Nigeria. That is why all the state creations that are taking place were done by the military government starting from 1967. The only time that civilians came together as a people to determine their engagement was in 1963, when through a plebiscite, a public referendum, Midwestern state was created out of the old, Midwestern region, was created out of the old Western region in 1963. And that was the only time Nigeria went into a referendum in history. And we have been asking. That is the one that even the three regions that we had then were created by the colonial masters. We created together during the Constitutional Conference of 1959 that led to 1960 Independence Constitution to determine and decide how we're going to relate. Fast forward to this era, the last Constitutional Conference that we had was in 2014. Today, where are the results of that conference? Is anybody talking about them? If you now want to leave the issue of sovereign national conference, and let's all look at the Constitution as it is, which so many people have said that it is a lying and not an autonomous constitution, because the Constitution decided we the people, when eventually and actually it was a military constitution. But the military men have challenged the civilians and said, we gave you General Samuel Abubakar said, in 1999 we gave you a constitution, and you have not been able to change it to date. That means you lack the capacity to really touch those sensitive areas that will make Nigeria move forward.
Okay.
The issue of single tenor, it has been coming often and often, and each time it comes, it is shut down. Nobody wants to give it very clear attention. How do we conduct our elections? Today, you conduct an election, you swear in executives and officers where they will be sitting on top of the government treasury and be going to court. They will use the fund of the government to defend their personal political ambition in the election. And that is why anytime there is rigging of our electoral process, you don't achieve meaningful turnaround to the courts, because the man who has rigged and who has been sworn in and sat in office has now a large arsenal to defend himself. And I have started the campaign and said, let every issue about election and the litigation be concluded before swearing in. Is anybody talking in that direction? The people that are looking at reviewing the Constitution, are they looking in that direction? The state and local government joint account, which has held down the local government system, it is not to give local government financial autonomy. If you don't give them political autonomy, they will still continue to be in the pocket of the governors. And that is why there's no governor in Nigeria that has ever conducted a credible local government election.
Well.
Every time there's a charade, is an appointment, a selection of people, sit down in government house, select the boys that are obedient to either the system or the political party, and then announce their name, deceive others, and call it an election. Very shambolic and very shameful. That is why government does not come to the grassroots, and Nigerians are suffering. Is anybody looking in
Okay.
that direction to demerge that? Look at that constitution and give the local government structure a firm
Okay.
footing
But
that it will stand strongly.
yeah, but
These are
Barrister,
all the issues
yeah.
that need urgent surgical operation by
Mm.
way of a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, but looking at the local government now, is it just the autonomy that's the issue? Because we get to see or hear of situations where you are supposed to be governing a particular local government, but then you are in Abuja. Take for example, you're the chairman of a local government in Lagos, but then you stay fully in Abuja. So don't you think at some point, to beyond the financial autonomy, there's some kind of, I don't know, reform that needs to happen there that hampers the performance of local governments in the country?
Chairman can now leave his domain and stay put in Abuja because he didn't run for election. He didn't get there with the mandate of the people. He was appointed by the governor. So as long as his act is to the satisfaction of the governor, it does not matter. And how does he satisfy the governor? By ensuring that he signs the vouchers. When the money comes, today we are talking about money going direct to local government system. Do you know that they are still being circumvented? When you just come and sign that you have received 120 million for your local government. You just sign on paper, you have received. Meanwhile, that money is in the hands of the state, controlled by the governor.
Okay, so now
As I'm talking to you.
yeah.
So if eventually you just finish signing that and governor now releases some little amount of money to you to just run your office, maintain, pay some traditional rulers, some police officers in your domain at the local government level, take care of some of the boys that are disturbing you, then you can go elsewhere and stay. It doesn't concern the governor.
Okay, so now
the governor has done what he wants.
yeah.
So that is why if there is no mandate, there is no responsibility. Okay. And that is what we are seeing today.
All right, so if you're listening to us, this is Spotlight, by the way, and we have Barrister Fred Nzeko on the line with us as our analyst. He's a lawyer and development economist. He's been giving some very insightful analysis. So if you want to call in, although we're almost out of time already, you can call the studio line 0805 092 0927. That's 0805 092 0927. Or you can go to the Facebook page at Super FM Lagos to drop your thoughts on the Constitution review process, the move by the House of Reps, and some areas that you think would need reform. So now, Barrister Fred, from everything you have said, the people are clearly the boss of the public officers. We put them there, we elect them to serve. So what is the role of Nigerians? What is the role of ensuring that all of these things you've pointed out can be checked or amended?
Nigerians have a very critical role. First, to understand that they are the employers of the public servants. If they understand that role, the dynamics of the relationship would change, because one, at the point of employment, which is at the point of election, what have you done as a people? Just yesterday, the final result of the presidential election, general election in Ghana, parliamentary election, was announced in Ghana, and they had a voter turnout of 60.9%, almost 61% voter turnout in a small country where the registered voters were 18 million plus, but the number of people that voted were over 11 million. That is 60.1, almost 61% voter turnout. What is the voter turnout in Nigeria, the country that claims to be the giant of Africa? Sometimes after the general election, we are seeing between 23 and at most 30%. That is not good enough. So at the end of the day, you find out that the people have not done what they are supposed to do. They have not. Less than 15% of the registered voters will now elect your leadership. Less than 15%. Not to talk of the population. I'm talking about registered voters. The last general election had a registered voter of about 80-something million. How many people voted? How many? And we are getting less than 27% voter turnout. So the people themselves must start from that point. Tied to that is, what did you do on the day of election? Did you collect money to vote in an obviously wrong person? Or did you collect money to vote in carelessly anybody that you didn't even want to know who he was? You were only looking at the money or the gifts that was to come out from voting for a particular political party. At that point, you are not only mortgaging your future, you are also killing the process of good governance. So that is where the people have responsibility. And if you don't vote the right person, or if you collect money and you are induced, you wouldn't have the mouth, you wouldn't have the temerity to ask for public accountability. Yeah. And that is why, at the end of the day, today, if you ask anybody, you are the one that voted for this government, they say, no, I didn't vote. Nobody now wants to agree that they voted for this government because the government is not performing to their expectation. Because the hunger is massive in the land. And everybody is now shying away from being the father of the government. They say success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan.
Okay.
But Nigerians voted. Yeah. And who were you? You were induced at your state level, at your national level, at your local government level. At the end of the day, you say, make I hold this one, and the one where I get. At the end of the day, 2 days, the whole thing you got is finished, and you suffer for 4 years plus another 4 years.
Yeah.
So that is the responsibility of the people.
So now the thing is,
to determine your fate and ask for accountability. Not accountability is not to come and begin to complain. No, when you elect, you ask questions. But when you have induced or been compromised, you can no longer ask questions.
Ask questions. Okay. So now let's wrap it up with, I was going to ask you about your thoughts on the Farotimi's situation, but we don't have time. We have just 2 minutes now. So let's wrap it up with what you've said now when it comes to election and how Nigerians, the attitude of Nigerians towards election. Does it apply to the constitution review process that is ongoing? Because the reps talked about public hearing. So where do Nigerians come in that? And what is the role now that we Nigerians have to play in regards to the constitution review process?
Every man who is running around to find food to eat does not even know there's anything called public hearing. That is the irony and the unfortunate irony about it. That most people are in a rat race. People are hungry, people are unemployed, people are suffering. Their interest, according to the law of nature, their first interest is how do you feed your stomach. Because when you scale the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first one is the one that will sustain you. It is after you have fed yourself that you now begin to look around and say, what next do I do? Majority of Nigerians, more than 70% of Nigerians are not interested in that public hearing. And that is where these people will now gang up and dish out whatever they like. The civil society organizations are supposed to represent the people, but a lot of them are not supported by the people, except those ones that get funding from outside Nigeria, that they now try to come around to listen to the public hearing. The parliamentarians themselves make it very difficult. Oh, they say when you want to submit your memorandum, it has to be in 10 copies. Anything, make it and then send it. At whose cost? At whose cost? We elected you there to make laws for us. Now you want us to come, let me come and leave what I'm doing. If it is an artisan, he will leave what he's doing to come and begin to tell you what to do. If you don't know what to do, you get out of the place. Why is it difficult to pull people out of that parliament when they are not performing? Because it has become an issue of the elite against the people. The same public hearing always suffers the same fate. Lack of interest, because not only that the people are not interested originally and naturally, they have been severed by economic realities and forced not to be interested.
So how do we get the interest back up now? Because we have to get the interest back up.
Like I said, whatever we patch and get to 2027, it is always at the point of election that the people will have the 100% authority. Any day outside the election, the authority is the one they gave you and you go take. But on the day of election, that is when you use your thumb to decide your fate. If you fail, it's another round of round-robin game that we call vicious cycle, that the wrong person voted the wrong leader, the wrong leader led wrongly, and led to the wrong person. not being able to vote in the right person, and the cycle continues viciously all around. We must break that vicious cycle. And how do we do it? Public enlightenment. This program you're airing, beautiful one. What of the listenership? Are they implementing what they hear? What is the effect of some of these enlightenment programs
they will
at
implement.
the end of the day?
They will implement.
So it is important we keep talking, and it is important that we act in the right direction.
All right, Barrister, in 30 seconds, your final words on streamlining the Federal Executive Council, after all said and done.
It is supported. It is in the right direction because we do not have the opportunity to bloat away our hard-earned resources. We need to deploy most of the resources to productivity and not to recurrent expenses that can be described at best as jaye jaye. Just come and enjoy. We want a government that will work, not a government that will enjoy. Father Martin Cooker, Bishop Esther said that we did not elect people in government to enjoy on our behalf.
Yes,
we elected them to serve and make life better for everybody, not to enjoy
on our behalf. Thank you so much, Barrister. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day today.
Many thanks.
All right, then. So you heard from Fred Nzeko, lawyer and development economist. That's the wrap on Spotlight today. Join me tomorrow for another edition. I am Kimberly, your host. Sports Crew takes over shortly. Don't go away.
92.7 Super FM.
Is this a mistake? What? What's that? What happened? See, I just bought 1,000 Naira Glow data, and instead of the usual, I got 3.9 gigabytes. Guy, I swear, that's how I saw it too. I bought 2,000 Naira data yesterday, and I got a whopping 9.2 gigabytes. Wow! Glow data is just always